In this video, I will demonstrate how to set up the environment for the workshop. This will be helpful if you are an instructor giving a workshop to a group of engineers, or if you are by yourself trying out the hands-on labs. To get started, let's visit the Cloud Native Toolkit website. Click on Workshop, and you will see the overview of the different tasks. So we're going to go to set up the environment. Workshop environment, you will need a OpenShift cluster. We're going to install the toolkit and we're going to set up the workshop. You can use a toolkit supports clusters in IBM Cloud and also on premises or any cloud, as long as it's OpenShift supported version. Here you can see some of the options. IBM Cloud offers a free cluster for a few hours. You can use one to deploy with your own account using the toolkit and the Terraform tiles on IBM Cloud VPC2. You can also find instructions on how to install OpenShift in other multi-cloud environments. And there's also an option if you are an IBMer and have access to the IBM internal network, you'll be able to use our free one-click deployment using the CSP lab. So I'm going to show a cluster using a deployment using a free cluster on IBM Open Labs and another cluster deploy using VMs on premises on a private network. So let's try the first one. I'm going to open the Open Labs one. This is the one that is free for a few hours. Go ahead and select the lab that says bring your own application. Click the launch lab, and it should take a few seconds to assign an OpenShift cluster to your IBM account. And you can use a free IBM Cloud account or standard account, doesn't matter. The cluster will be available for hours, and you can increase that up to 8 hours. Just if you want to run a workshop for a whole day, you can do that. It allows you to run multiple labs. So this is the interface to the OpenShift cluster. The first thing we want to do is, this is the architecture. You'll be logging into IBM Cloud. It's running an OpenShift cluster. And if you go to quick links and common commands, you can open the OpenShift console here in a new tab. And this is, if you're not already logged into IBM Cloud, it will ask you for your username and password or to sign up. I already signed in, so I'm logging in with my IBM Cloud account. So this is my cluster. It's a 2-node cluster, and this is what we're going to use to run the workshop. If you return back the Open Labs, you can scroll down to find the login to this cluster using the OC CLI. At this point, we don't need these two windows, so you can hide them using the interface. So hide the outline, hide the content. And then in here, you will be able to run the commands. Return to the setup the workshop environment, the Cloud Native Toolkit website. And then the second step is install the IBM Cloud Native Toolkit. Copy that CLI command. We're going to be using the quick install. There's other options to customize the installation, but for purpose of the workshop, we made it easy. So one-click install, copy that, and then return to the terminal that you're already logged in. You can run OC who am I, and see this is the my IBM account that is logged in. I'm logged in as an admin. I have admin permissions and cluster admin on this cluster. So I'm going to paste the command to install the toolkit that this will run a job inside the cluster and install the toolkit. This will take less than 10 minutes. So I will fast forward the video and return back when it's done. Now that the toolkit is installed, return to the workshop webpage to get the next step. The next step is set up the IBM Cloud Native Toolkit workshop environment. This is customizations and installing a Git server inside the OpenShift to be used in the hands-on labs. copy that command, the CLI command for the workshop, return back to the terminal, and then you can paste that command in. So I'll paste that in and then press enter. The command will run a script that will configure the cluster and customize the toolkit to run the workshop hands-on lab. This usually takes less than 10 minutes, so I will fast forward the video and return back. Now that the toolkit is installed, return back to the workshop environment setup page for the next step. This step is optional. To do it this way, I would recommend it if you're using the IBM Cloud Shell or the OpenLabs Shell. If you're using your local computer, you might as well install the CLI, the Toolkit CLI by itself, and you should be good. In our case, we'll install the Cloud Shell. So copy the command for the shell environment, go back to the terminal and paste the command to install. And this will set up Node.js, install the CLI. The Toolkit CLI provides plugins for kubectl and OCCLI that would be used during the workshop hands-on labs. So hit enter and to start the process, and this should take less than 5 minutes. So I would fast forward the video. Now that the CLI is set up and complete, let's verify the installation of the toolkit and the setup of the workshop using the OpenShift console user interface. So let's go to the console, and this is our OpenShift cluster. If you verify here in the right top corner, you will not see it, the tools. If you don't see them, it means that you have to refresh the browser. So let me refresh the browser. And then now we should see the Cloud Native Toolkit section with the tools that the toolkit install. For example, Argo CD, Artifactory, a developer dashboard, Git server, Path Broker, SonarQube, and Swagger editor. The workshop install an internal Git server called Gogs, and so on. All these tools are installed in one namespace, so the toolkit only uses one tools. By default, the name is tools, but that can be customized. So you go to projects and select find the tools namespace or project. You will see that under workloads, you will see the different tools that are installed that we'll be using during the workshop DevOps hands-on labs. So for example, Argo, Artifactory, SonarQube, Path Broker, Swagger editor, and all these tools are available there. So you're ready to start using the CLI and the console and go through the different workshops that we have in the website. So starting from the CI pipelines using Tekton and following with continuous deployment, continuous delivery using GitOps and with Argo CD. The next section, I'm going to show installing the toolkit on an OpenShift cluster. We'll go through the same process. I'm going to show installing the toolkit and setting up the workshop on an OpenShift cluster that is located and deployed on premises using VMs on a private network. So that is a similar process, a little bit of difference in terms of logging in. In this section, I'm going to show how to install the toolkit and the workshop environment on an OpenShift cluster that is not located in IBM Cloud. In this case, I'm going to be using a cluster that is on premises using VMs on a private network. So from the main page on the Cloud Native Toolkit, go to Workshop, go to Setup Workshop Environment, and the first thing is to get an OpenShift cluster. I already had one deployed internally inside IBM in the VPN, and this is running in VMs on premises. This is the cluster. what we want to do first is log in the terminal CLI using the OC CLI as an admin. Typically, kubeadmin is one account, but you can use any cluster admin account to install the toolkit. So one way to do it is you can go and grab the copy login command page, log in as kubeadmin or cluster admin. So we'll go type in my username and password in here and log in, and that will give me my CLI command. Or if I already know the username and password, I can put that in my terminal. So let me get my terminal. And then paste the command in here. And it should be in. So let me zoom in. If I do OC who am I, it will show that I'm kubeadmin. So the next step is to install the IBM Cloud Native Toolkit. We're going to use the quick install. There's also a way to customize it using Terraform. In this case, I'm just going to do the inside the cluster with a job running the installation process. So copy and paste the CLI command in here and press enter. This process is very quick. It should take less than 10 minutes. So I'm going to fast forward the video and we'll pick it up from there. Now with the toolkit installed, let's move to the next step, which is setting up the workshop. We're going to be using the one line command. So copy that line and then go ahead and paste it in the terminal. Still logged in as a cluster admin in my OpenShift cluster. This would take less than 5 minutes, so I will fast forward. Now that the workshop is finished installing, next step is to install the CLI. I'm not going to use this shell configuration because I'm not going to be using the IBM Cloud shell or the OpenLabs shell or like a VM Linux shell. I'm using my own workstation, so the minimum setup will be the Toolkit CLI. So if you go to target CLI, there's a command in here to install the CLI using npm. So you have to make sure that you have node configure in your computer and ability to install npm packages globally using something like nvm or node version manager. So I'm going to copy the command and paste it here. This should take maybe 1 minute to install, and we will have the IGC CLI. The IGC CLI installation, what it does, also installs plugins for kubectl and the OpenShift CLI, OC CLI. So be leveraging the Toolkit CLI through plugins. But you can always check the version like you see in the documentation here, and also invoking the help to see what are the all the convenience CLIs. So this is installed now, and we'll move on to the next step in the workshop setup, which is very fine. So we're done installing the workshop. Let's go to our OpenShift cluster, and one thing to verify the toolkit's installed is under the menu. If you don't see it there, refresh the console so the menu gets refreshed, and then you can click in here and you will see the tools installed by the toolkit: Argo, Artifactory, Developer Dashboard. The workshop configure a Git server internally, the image registry shortcut, which is inside this cluster, Path Broker, SonarQube, and Swagger 8. All these tools are installed in the tools namespace. So if you go to projects, tools, and you see workloads. These tools are installed in the tools namespace, and that's also configurable. We will not be installing apps in this namespace. Each user will be creating their own project or namespace. So user 1, the workshop created 15 user accounts for OpenShift and also for the Git server. So let's use one of those users to see how you yourself as an instructor or the attendees will be using it. So at this point you can log out from the console, and what you can do here is now you see that there's an IBM Toolkit HT Pass WD local authentication. So if you log in here, and all the users will be logging here, use IBM Toolkit, and then users will be using the account user 1 or user 2, user 3. I recommend the instructor just grab user 1, and the password is the work password. And again, you can modify the password later or now if you want for the users. So, but for the benefit of running the labs, the username and password is the same for all the users. Is password, just plain text password. Login. Now you will see that the users only have access. So user 1 will have access to projects or namespaces that start with project 1. So let me zoom in here. Project 1, user 2 will have access to projects that start with project 2, prefix, user 3, and so on. So in this case, this is an environment like you will have with developers. So you maybe as an SRE or an operations or admin person with managing the cluster, but you will give to other users access only to the namespaces that they create or certain namespaces that you created. So that's an example of setting up the workshop and the development environment. In the CLI, the user will log in as user 1. So you can copy the command from here. For example, again, log in again, password, and this will give you that access token. You can do it this way and log in, and then you are logged in as user 1. So if you do OC who am I, you'll see that I'm user 1. You can also do OC login -u user 1 or user 2, and then the password is password, and you can log in like that. So it's very convenient. So the scripts that we're going to be using in the workshop hands-on leverage this. So I'll show a little bit of that, but there will be another video that goes deep explaining. So for example, the first workshop, each user will be assigned a user, so they can come in here and set an environment variable that will be used for the rest of the commands. They can log in with their username like I did. So this is very easy to run a workshop with a couple of people going through the exercises. And then user 1 should be using project 1 as a prefix. User 2 should be using project 2, user 3, project 3. So every user should have their own account so they can experience the development workflow on their own. So this is just the beginning of that. And then this is an example of how to test the IGC Toolkit CLI. You can create a new project using OC Sync. So in this case, this will create a project called project1-dev and copy the config maps and secrets from the tools namespace that are needed to run DevOps pipeline using the different tools. So the config maps and secrets are leveraged by the pipelines to access the different tools as it goes through the pipeline. So I'll stop here, and this is a way I just show how to install the toolkit and set up the workshop in two different OpenShift clusters. One is in public cloud and another one is on premises private cloud. And this is the end of this demo setting of the workshop.